Hello, everyone. Welcome back to OTD Military History. Today, we are going to do something a little different. I've done shows where I've talked about, I think, like top 5 books on Hong Kong, Normandy, First World War, that kind of thing. So today, I'm going to be talking about a most recent book haul I had from the Canadian War Museum. So just a little background. I live in Ottawa, as many of you know. That's where the museum is as well. At the museum, which I go to frequently, usually for work-related things, research, and other meetings, which is what I had earlier this week. What they have there is a used book sale that runs pretty much all the time, like most weekdays, usually late morning, sometimes early morning to late afternoon, sometimes weekends, things like that. It's a great thing. The prices are fantastic. Where most of my collection, as you can see across here, that's where most of this comes from. They do like $7 a book now or something like that. It's ridiculous. This one was $5, so not even like anything. So I thought I'd talk about some of the ones I got, get a chance to hang out with you guys on a Friday afternoon, which is kind of basically what I want to do anyway. But something's going to be special coming up. As we get towards the end of this book haul, I'll explain everything and what I hope to do with what I'm going to explain. It's going to help. It's to help the channel and to help work going, keep it going, keep everything moving along. Because some of you know, some of you might not know, I've had a couple work opportunities fall through. So I need to kind of do something to kind of boost myself up a little bit. And I'm hoping this kind of thing will put me over the top with something I've been trying to do. So anyway, so the first one, I surprisingly enough never got a copy of this. I don't know how. I can hold this strangely. Can't see. Yeah, that's good. So this is D-Day Dodgers about the Canadians in Italy from Daniel Dancook's. It's like one of the go-tos on the Canadians in Italy. It's fairly old. I mean, it's been around a long time. This one's 91. I can't remember the initial run. I think the initial run was 91. Anyway, early 90s. So it's quite a bit a while ago, but it's got lots of good personal stories. I know tons of people who've used this. It's led to further research, people looking into their family history, all that kind of stuff. So it's a fascinating one to look into and to have. Right, that it's literally in the title, like the D-Day Dodgers. It's not as well known as other areas. Also, I wanted to start with this one because this one comes up a lot. Like I said, people using it to kind of springboard research and other historians who have done so and all of that stuff. And Dan Cook's wrote on a whole bunch of other things. So I wanted to start with this one just to mention, that Canadians are still fighting in Italy. Right, myself, I'm guilty of this. I've been focusing on Normandy myself, right, for the 80th anniversaries and everything right now. The Canadians are still fighting in Italy, right? The attacks are still going on. The war is still going on for them. It doesn't stop. So it's good to remember that as well. So quick question here from Chris is, how does it compare with the official history? That's a good question. I've used the official history more for, I think, obvious reasons if you know the stuff, because the official history is available free online in a PDF, easy to grab. It's that's why I go to. It's also got good references in it. This one, not saying that this one doesn't. This one's a little more updated than the ones in the official because the official was done a long time ago, and some of the stuff has changed. But this has them at DHH, which is the Director of History and Heritage from. Which is Department of National Defense. Sorry, I'm trying to keep my eye on the sidebar as well. And if I miss a question or something like that, it's not on purpose. I'm sorry. Put it in again if you want me to check it out. So yeah. Anyway, so it's good. It's more about the personal stories. Like I think I just saw Alex say, where is it? Yeah, because Chris asked how it connects, and there's not as many personal history stories in the official history. That goes for every official history because that's how they're written. So yeah, this one is quite extensive, covering that extended period all the way from the landings in Sicily, well, before that, and all the way up until Operation Goldflake, where they moved to Northwest Europe. So it's a fascinating one to look at and get the personal stories. Now, I was getting ready for this, and just a few minutes ago, because I was doing some other stuff, I was just going through them, make sure I didn't miss anything cool. Because one of the things I enjoy about used books, in particular, is who owned them first, or who owned them before you, or what they put in them. And I'll get to some in a second. But this one just has a bookmark in it, which is kind of cool. However, I don't know if this will show up well, and why I know whose collection this is, and we'll get to that in a second. This was from I don't know, it's not very clear, but from the official collection. Well, no, it's from the book collection of Sidney Radley Walters, and I'll explain why I know that in a bit. So that's pretty cool, right? Normandy fame. One of the ones credited with taking out Michael Whitman, leading the Sherbrooks through Northwest Europe. So that's pretty cool. That was in his collection. It was given to him as a birthday gift. I mean, I've had all kinds of ones like that in the past. Like I've had Desmond Morton books, because a lot of people, when these people pass away, they the spouse or the children or whoever brings them to the Canadian War Museum, to the Friends of the Canadian War Museum, who do all this stuff to help support programs at the museum. And there's kind of a cool one that might be happening that they're supporting. I can't say what it is, so I'll leave that to you. So that's a good question. I haven't done anything in that area with folks. I haven't looked at that. I haven't looked at this book, to be honest, in quite a long time. I took one out from the library a long time ago. But yeah, I haven't done anything that in depth with Vokes and the historiography on him with Dan Cooks, unfortunately. But somebody in the sidebar might know. But off the top of my head, I don't remember where he comes down on him. It's usually pretty divisive, so that wouldn't surprise me. So anyway, so this is a good one if you're looking to get a overview with some personal stuff. All that. That's a good one, and always, of course, going to keep some mentions with Italy. So I'm sure some of you have read the book or know Tim Cook's work on basically the historiography of Canada's world wars. And kind of how they went and how they're written and all that stuff, right? Because there's supposed to be this massive series of volumes related to the CEF of the First World War, which doesn't happen. I think it's only 2 volumes get released in the series very late. So there was a bit of a mess. A lot of the veterans were upset they didn't get that book. It took, a long time for that to happen. So when C.P. Stacey comes around in the Second World War, he's not officially the head of anything at the time. When he does become the head of what becomes DHH, his one of his main goals, and we'll get there with the actually I'll just back to back. Sorry, I had them in the wrong order here. Was to get these official histories out as quickly as possible. So they did them in stages. So you have ones like this. It's just Normandy, and it's quite a long time ago, and it's all standalone. At the time of publication, it was only 50 cents. And publication date would have been 1946. Super early. So super early. I'm just going to put this back in order for a reason I will get to later. So that's like right after the war. This one is all over. And there's some articles on here. An article written by Granite Steen about C.P. Stacey. Like I'm saying, like the things you find in here are quite fascinating. And this person annotated what newspaper it was and the date, which is something us historians love because you don't often get that. So anyway, so this one is Canada's overall war in, I think it's all of it. Yeah, it's the official one. So this is 48. So this is, sorry, 1 second. Wife is texting me. So this one is later on as well, right? They're trying to get out as much as they can so people have, access to this stuff because they really, really want it because, as a lot of you know, official files take forever to get released. Right, so this is usually like the only insight we have of official stuff, and then of course there's issues with that and how it's presented and the politics and everything. So these two will be the precursor to the other official histories, 3 major volumes that are, 6 Years of War, Canadians in Italy, and Victory Campaign. So these are the predecessors of those. So yeah, it's fascinating. This is one of the things I like to collect. It's probably very niche. It's I like collecting these ones because I like having them and seeing the development of how these things are, written. I did that for my dissertation in Hong Kong, so I thought that was pretty cool. So this one can, interpretations change, some events change, things like that, and how they're presented in here because they don't get files at a certain time, or how they're writing it changes, right? Because these start from historical reports. If you've ever seen those are fascinating because those are like bare bones, lacking a lot of overhead detail because Canada wasn't privy to those until much later. So it is a lot going on, but this is, how it all starts out and moves through. So you got the one from 46, that's just Normandy. There's others as well. It's more like a pamphlet than a book. And then this is like the first book that you sometimes hear about. You often hear about the more official histories more often. So this one's another good one I'm happy to have. So this one is another Normandy one that come up recently. I don't know too much about it. So it's called Caen and Villa Victory by Alexander McKee. It's quite old in terms of its historiography. That's why I kind of grabbed it, because it looks at things in an interesting way. It's full of personal stories as well. That's how I came to know about it. This is a reprint from the 80s. It's got some stories in there that aren't really verified in any way. That's why I came to know about it, was people claiming that, certain war crimes are carried out and all that good stuff. Like it's in here. I mean, a lot of it is kind of a dead end. There's interviews with some names that you probably would recognize. Such as like Leo Garapé, the first Czars, who lands at Juno Beach. He's one of the interviewees of this book because he's involved in a lot of that campaign. It's published. Sorry, one second. So the original one is published in 1964 by a different publisher. This is a reissue from 1984. So it's a few years before I was born. It was only 10 pounds at the time. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, it's for the 40th anniversary. So makes sense. 84. I should have just looked at the front. Yeah, so this is an interesting one. Again, it's all about the historiography. That is the huge nerd in me of wanting to learn this stuff and how it develops, especially Caen, right? Because it gets so much controversy and how this all goes and all that good stuff. So I'm looking forward to digging into this one when I need it and looking at that side of Normandy, as I like to call it, and understanding how it all goes and how it was interpreted, right? Really early after the war in the 60s, things were starting to change and how it was viewed. Some files were becoming available. So it really changes, things change, and this is how we go about doing that is looking into the old books, right? I think this one's available online in the Internet Archive, if I'm not mistaken. But as you can see, I'm a huge book nerd collector, so I like to have physical copies myself, especially when they're this price. It's hard not to get them when they're so cheap. And that goes for all the books there, too. I can't speak well enough of that place. They have all kinds of books there. They get a lot of the same ones in over and over again. So, like, if you're there and you think it might be gone, it'll probably be back. Like, they have the Churchill history all the time and the official histories all the time. And they've got sections on everything, basically. All of World War II, World War I. They even have almost a whole shelf, kind of like behind me, a little smaller, of Civil War, American Civil War, Napoleonic as well. Canadian Navy, RCAF, biographies, a lot of Canadian focus, obviously. It's a great place to get books, and some are in French language as well, which is where I got this one, which I didn't know next to nothing about. Gerard Marchand, don't know him. I think it's fascinating based on the picture. He looks like he was a priest. He was born in 1904, so I doubt he's still alive. But yeah, I wrote it on the Maisonneuve, right? Who fight in second div. So how can that not be fascinating to look at? I mean, my French is not fantastic, but it's good enough for this stuff because I know all of this stuff going on. You know, I know the details and I can always do a quick translate, but it's really interesting to get in the original French and all that stuff. So yes, it is in French. And yes, they have books on the Pacific Theater. Those ones seem to go pretty quickly. They are very popular, right? They have some of the ones you see all the time, like was it At Dawn We Slept about Pearl Harbor and things like that. They got a lot of stuff on Guadalcanal because I was just there the other day. A few things on Iwo because I was looking for some stuff on Paleolithic. They didn't have anything. A lot on Pearl Harbor, a lot about the end of the war. They have some stuff on the German army as well. They got like an espionage section. They have a Korea section, Vietnam, nuclear weapons. They have a ton of those old reference books, right? Like it's just full of tanks, right? That stuff gets changed all the time, right? They have all those. The Jane series, I do believe, is called. They got a whole bunch of those and some old paperbacks and a lot of coffee table books. And it's kind of like the military history nerd paradise, basically. Older, new, whatever. It's whatever they can get, right? They're reliant on donations. Like I've donated some books I didn't use anymore. Like whatever they get, whatever they come in, right? Like I mentioned, like the Desmond Morton stuff came in a couple of years back, and unfortunately after he passed, and lucky to have some of his stuff, which it feels kind of special to have that, a Canadian historian of that standing to have a book that was in his collection. Feels pretty special. So it's just whatever comes in. There's no real rhyme or reason. There can be some new books that were published. I saw some new ones that were only published a couple of years back. And there, it all really depends. But yeah, it's fascinating to see what comes in, and that's why I always go back to check because you never know what you're going to see. And they got tons of things like that. No, Norma, I didn't see any of those. And I was looking. I always go over the Canadian section probably 3 times because the one half of basically the whole room is Canadian. So like units, and then it's like the World Wars and other wars, and then the services and biographies and all of that nature. They have a general military history section as well. Like to make the joke about the big book of war. Zap Brannigan's Big Book of War section, because it's always like war and all that kind of stuff, just giant letters. So you have a lot of those. So yeah, so things like there's a French section, which is always interesting to see how things are perceived in French Canada as opposed to English Canada, and there are major differences. But this one, the Maisonneuve out of Montreal is a big unit for them, still around too. So really, really cool to see. Yeah, they're still around. Yes, they are. I went by their barracks like 2 years ago. So that's interesting. So special attention shall now be applied. I know, I already talked about this one, but it is very cool to see how Normandy is perceived, not even 2 years after it happened from official sources. I mean, it's really interesting. I just noticed that Stacy uses a Henry V quote here to start it, which is interesting because we see that Band of Brothers makes that very popular later on, using Henry V from Shakespeare for all that good stuff. So yeah, it's fascinating to have this, and really good to dig into that. Like I said, pay special attention as we move forward, because these books are going to be differentiated in a way. So this one I've talked about at length. So this is, sorry, it's very shiny. My lighting is not good in here anymore because my lamp died. Conduct Unbecoming: Story of Murdered Canadian Prisoners in Normandy by Howard Mongolian, who was a war crimes investigator in Canada. Not sure what he's doing now, but yeah, he's this book is excellent. It really goes into, horrifying and depressing detail of what happens to all those, the 156 that we know of who were murdered by the 12th SS. Like the details here are unmatched anywhere else. Like it's fascinating, and this book is like a must-have for anybody. If you want to understand the Canadians in Normandy and how this went, this is a must-have. The research is impeccable. He takes us all the way through to the POWs that were brought to Canada, Kurt Meyer's incarceration, him being released, all that stuff. Like, it's just fascinating. It gets into the really nitty gritty. And I went to these locations because of this book, right? Some of them are just random fields that aren't really marked in any way, not like, the Abbey or Chateau Audrey and all those places with memorials. Some of them, there is no memorials. So it's fascinating. This one is a hard to get book, not used. It's hardly available and not not around. So this is definitely one I recommend you get. So this one is also a good one. So I've talked about stupid glare, the Valor and the Horror a ton. So this is a fascinating collection. It's like the academic response to the Valor and the Horror, right? This is really digging into things like Verrier Ridge. Hong Kong is mentioned in here. It's by John Ferris, who's a fantastic historian and was on my committee. Does all kinds of stuff for East Asia, but Britain as well. It has the responses from Galafilm, who was one of the producers, the Ombudsman report from CBC, a background on it, and all of that stuff. No, they are not complimentary on the series. And Ferguson is one of the editors, as was Sidney Wise, who was an Air Force historian, which makes sense because one of the episodes was Bomber Command. He was an official historian and connected. So it's fascinating to look at. It really goes into detail. This thing was like a lifeline for me, my dissertation on Hong Kong. Having to look at it, see what it was, right? Because why this is interesting, and I brought this up in the dissertation defense and in the dissertation, and John Ferris was on my committee, and he gave me the okay to get the PhD, so I don't think it upset him too much. But the Hong Kong episode is seen to be not that bad. There's few details. It's mostly about why they're sent there is the focus. And then I say, they say the rest of it's kind of okay, or they say it's fine. I took it further and from here because there's very little written on it in that way about Hong Kong. And I said, no, the rest of the episode is terrible as well. Like, it's just details are made up, literally. Things are, just gone crazy. So it's not good either, that episode. So I took the historiography a step further in that regard. But this one it's just fascinating because it gets into the details of these three episodes in a really compact kind of way. So this one is available. I see this one all the time used. I don't know why people are giving this one up. It's a great book. It should have been better known. And because it just does it in such a good way, and talking about Normandy and then Bomber Command in Hong Kong. It's fascinating. So another one that you've probably heard of quite a bit. Sorry if I'm going too fast. I don't want this to be too long. So another one you've probably heard of is Farley Mowat. He's fairly well known. Talked about him on the channel. I have all his books behind me already. So this is the most famous one, I guess you could say. Probably the best known of his experiences, Sicily and all of that. And it's rather intense and talking about the things that Asoro and that climb, because he's a hasty P, and we had Norma on the channel to talk about Burke Kennedy and all that good stuff, which is detailed in here. That's a good question. How much of it is true? Most of it, as far as I can tell. I haven't done like the line by line, comparison, which you can do for some of this stuff. You can go line by line if you want, and all that good stuff. But some of the details change over time and how he presents them, because it just really reflects on where he was at personally in his life when he wrote those books. So all of his military books, not all of his books, maybe one day. But no, all the military ones, Regiment, No Bird Sang, and My Father's Son, I believe. It's behind a bunch of other books, and I'm blind anyway, can't see. So it's a great way to start to get into this stuff if you haven't heard of it. He obviously can write extremely well. Talked about how he was an intelligence officer and wrote the war diary. it's fascinating how the war diary goes from kind of this dry, what you would expect, to this almost poetic lyrical style, and you can see the difference in signature, and it says Farley Mowat. So it's just a fascinating another connection of how military history in Canada goes with all these names. It's fascinating. It's great, and in that regard. But no, I wouldn't take every word in this as gospel. But if you want to get a feel of what it was like to fight from someone who probably should have been nowhere near a battlefield. I mean, he was young and in shape, clearly, because he did the climate of sorrow. But, I mean, probably should have been way back in a staff or something. I don't think he should have been a frontline officer. It's fascinating to think about that. And I think Norma's kind of hitting it on the head here with like a primal scream, because it's accurate. And it gets crazier, not crazier. I think crazy. More with... My Father's Son, which is also written later, seems to like change again, like I said, depending on where he is in his life. So yeah, it's a fascinating book. Highly recommend it. No, it's not a first edition. I think Alex asked that. Sorry, you guys are on fire today. It's a second printing of the first edition. Yeah, second printing, 1979. So not quite a first edition, but pretty close. I don't think they're worth that much as a first edition because there's a lot of them. I see them all over the place. And it's Farley Mowat, right? One of the most popular Canadian authors of all time. So hard not to have them. Yeah, it's another fascinating one. So moving along. A lot of people ask me about this book. And I do. There we go. Come on, zoom. There we go. I do recommend it. So it looks at the senior commanders, so brigadiers and up of the Canadian Army. This is like a must-have if you want to understand, Canada's war, Canadian Army's war. In the Second World War, you need to do this because it goes into detail and really set the groundwork for other work to be done on Canadian generals, right? So this one was also in the collection of Radley Walters because it's literally signed to him his full name for Christmas 1993 from, I assume, his wife, Pat. I assume, I'm making an assumption there, for the 50th anniversary of D-Day, which he was clearly a part of. So this is another fascinating one of the things you see here. So this one looks at all the big hitters. Starts with it starts with exploring Canada's development of the Canadian Army, how the First World War plays into that. Kind of the old guard with Currie, all those guys. And then moves into McNaughton, right, who was in the First World War as a gunner. Not going to get into that one, but it's still a helpful book because it's all collected in one place. I guess that's why I said it launches others. Hey, it doesn't have your name connected to his. Anyway, so it looks at McNaughton, right? Because he's first commander of the first Canadian division, and then first 7th Corps, I think? No, 7th Corps, something like that, which gets turned into the Canadian Corps, and then becomes head of First Canadian Army, right? So it looks into that and the whole. It's hard to say it's hard to explain how this whole thing goes. Basically, Alan Brooke loses faith in McNaughton as a leader. So they want him out. Crear, who's seen as to be the super ambitious guy, it's usually presented in a bad way, like he stabs people in the back. I wouldn't really go that far because I don't think he really had that many close friends to begin with. So can you stab somebody in the back if you're not really their friend? So anyway, so it goes into that whole detail, but it looks at him from more the two sides. Then obviously moves to Crear. Actually, the chapter titles are hilarious. So it's McNaughton, the god that failed. So that's pretty accurate. And then Crear, ambition realized. And then Tommy Burns' problems of personality, which I think is hilarious. Anyway, so then it goes to Tommy Burns, Guy Simmons, Then does Matthews, who we've covered on the channel before. And then Hoffmeister, who was very successful. Pope, and then Stewart, right, who are lesser known. I mean, Stewart's literally buried one grave over from Criar, and was head of the Canadian military during most of the war. Anyway, and then dies of cancer. And then there's a whole chapter, which I very much appreciate, well, even though this was published well before my birth. Or was it? I can't remember. When was this published? 93. So I was 5. Anyway, talks about the lack of Francophone generals, which is fascinating because that is a problem in the Canadian Army that is rectified afterwards, but it took some time. But yeah, it's a fascinating book and was owned by a fascinating historical figure in his own right. So this is very much a must-have. As far as I know, he was writing several books, publishing several books. I don't think he's writing them all at once, but who knows? I don't think he's published anything recently because I've heard he was quite ill. As far as I know, he's still with us. It's a fascinating. He's a fascinating character and did a lot for Canadian history, generally speaking. So it was a fascinating one. But I assume he has a new book. I wouldn't surprise me. I haven't really looked. So fascinating. So yeah, there's that. And then also a quick one. I got this one a while back. Accidentally bought an extra copy because it was so cheap, because apparently these are more plentiful than I thought they were. Ken Bell, right? You might recognize that name. He's one of the official photographers from the Canadian Army Film and Photo Unit during the war. So this one, thank you, James, so much. Super sticker from James. Greatly appreciate that. Thank you. It combines basically when the war photos, and then Bell went back and took more, right? I think they're from the 70s. Again, I could be mistaken based on what I just saw of the clothes. 73, so kind of pretty much bang on. It mixes photo. I'm just trying to find a good representation. This is a good one. This is like a before and after shot. That's pretty famous, actually. So, you have this famous shot of the bunker, and then from some time in the 70s. So fascinating stuff. I have an extra copy of it. And this one's great to kind of get somewhat of an insight, not as much as you might want. It gives a really overview, right? It's like a coffee table type of book. But it also gives high-res copies of the photos that online are not high-res. So that's kind of cool. I mean, again, to me as the nerd, that is very, very cool. And here's a sniper. I believe he was, I can't remember. He was in Fillets. No, he was Blackwatch. I can't remember. Anyway, it's a photo that you've probably all seen. Is, the sniper, and then there he is. Hold on. Everything's reversed. Later in life, curling. The most Canadian thing I've ever seen in my life. But yeah. Anyway, yeah, so that's another one. So these, I'll just pile them again, so everybody can get a good look at the spines of these ones, and I'll show the other ones after. Sorry, these are upside down. This is important. Bear with me. And I'll show the other ones again in a second. So these ones here. So this pile is separated for a reason. So like I said off the top, a lot of you know, patrons and YouTube channel members, had a job kind of opportunity fall apart. So I'm trying to, I guess, make OTD more of a job for myself. Trying to do more. That's why I'm trying to get some more videos out and all that good stuff, and do more live streams because I enjoy them, but they're just fun to do, and et cetera, et cetera. So this pile of books. So what I've set up on Patreon, and it's linked in the description, and I'll share it here. Hopefully it works. I don't see why not. So there's the link to the membership. So as I've said many times before, Patreon really makes it so I can kind of keep going with this stuff. Without it, I can't. So what I've set up in there is another tier, which is called Colonel of the OTD Regiment. Actually, it has a picture of Curry on it because it was the best photo I could find, and who better embodies Canadian Army and has good photos than Curry. That's a new tier that I've set up. So what I'm hoping to do, and it's a lot more than the others, and I appreciate that, and I do. So what I'm hoping to do is there's only one of those available, is whoever signs up for that first, right, will get this stack of books. I will send them to you, right? All of these here, I will send them to you, right? That includes the Bradley Walters Own Generals, Ken Bell book, first edition. The Conduct Unbecoming to me is worth it alone because it's so expensive to get new. I know because I paid for it. I feel like an idiot, but I needed it for Normandy. Like No Bird saying, like this is a huge haul. So I'm going to send that to whoever signs up for that first. So that is, but I'm asking for a minimum of 3 months on that tier. If that's something someone can do, that would be stupendous. If nobody signs up, and then I'll figure out something else to do with the books. Because I believe Great Dominion asked any books on Air Force or naval subjects. So no, I grabbed a few that just caught my eye. I went in there with the purpose of doing this, grabbing books that I already have, know their value or what they mean, and getting them for others for cheap, right? Like it's $5, $7 is nothing for these books that go still retail for 40 plus Canadian, which is just absolutely wild to me. Like they're still extremely expensive. So I went into that with that in mind, is to set something up like that, so I can get this to that person, whoever signs up for that level, if someone does. That's kind of the idea and the thinking on that. So those are some ones I have for that purpose. The other ones are for myself. So we have the Canadian Army one, Con, and the ones about the Maisonneuve, and Dan Cook's on Italy are the other books that I discussed. I can put them down below. But yeah, so that's kind of the thinking. Oh, and the Normandy book, which I bought 2 copies of because I didn't have my own. I've seen the published or the electronic copy. I just like having it because I'm a nerd that way. So yeah, so that was my thinking with that. So yeah, talk about these books and the value they provide and what they'll show you and all that stuff. But yeah, so that's kind of what I was hoping there. Somebody could take up. Somebody signs up for that level, that would be greatly appreciated, and I will send that to you, and we'll just get in touch and we'll figure it out. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. So yeah, those are the books that I wanted to highlight because they had them, the value that they bring. Yeah, it's fascinating stuff. So if there's any questions, please go ahead. I will see if I missed anything in here. There's a interesting comment from Terry here. Just 1 second. Yeah, there's a ton of controversies. A ton. Some are bigger than others, right? Dieppe and Hong Kong are quite big. Same with Spring. Falaise is a bit of a smaller one. Worthington, right, is a battle group. And there's more. There's ones in the First World War as well. Passchendaele. Even to a smaller degree, like Mount Saint Eloi is another one. It's like a precursor to Passchendaele in a lot of ways. Bloodying of the 2nd Division, basically. So it's another one. They just kind of keep going. We love a good controversy in this country, and we love to blame everybody but ourselves. So yeah, see if I miss anything here. Yeah, you can. Sorry, I'm just missing stuff here. Yes, you can go there yourself. I think they take cash. I use my credit card because it's just easier. They have a little square, whatever it is, the square thing. It's a tap. Yeah, it's great. So yeah. Yeah, and I have buying me a book also as well. I'll put that in after. But yeah, lots of good stuff. So much, yeah, lots of backbiting and fighting, and yeah, that's why it's always good to get the different books to see the different perspectives. So yeah, so again, if somebody signs up for that level, I will be in touch, and that would be fantastic. If you could sign up for the other levels, and you get all the same benefits if you already are a patron. If you bump up, or if you sign up fresh, you get lots of other benefits as well. What I'm working on, early videos, insights on stuff, other sources I don't really share anywhere else. kind of with a quick, why they're important and all that good stuff. So yeah, so that would be great and greatly appreciated if somebody would do so. So I can also get rid of these doubles that I don't need. And if not, I'll figure something out, probably do something amongst other supporters. But yeah, some really good ones there. So any questions? See if I missed anything here. I feel sorry for Manon. I don't really. One thing about his story that is he was already off, like he was already, out of the army, and before the war, they brought him back in. He was kind of in a role he should have stayed in, right? With, the name, living in Ottawa, this is bad. I forget the name of it. The Scientific Development of Canada, the government organization, which the name completely is escaping me, which is bad. He was the head of that, so head of research, because he was a scientist as well, and that's why he was so good at the counter battery stuff. So, I mean, he was doing okay for himself. They asked him to come back, and he did, and then it fell apart by 43, as we know. But yeah, there are so many little stories going on here that just kind of get lost in the shuffle of the big ones in the war. So, yeah. NRC, National Research Council. Yeah. So, I mean, yes, he did for a very, very brief period because he couldn't get elected because he was not a popular man and not a politician. Not even close to a politician. That's why he got the boot. Not personally. I know people have. I had somebody on talking about Canada in connection to Vietnam as a live stream. You can check that out afterwards if you want, James. It's called Devil's Greatest Secret or something like that. It's the only really Vietnam thing I have in the live streams on the channel. I think it was a lot, like 20,000 or something like that. Who had some connection to Canada, birth or citizenship or volunteered or whatever, or even the draft dodgers who came and stayed. Anyway, so yeah, it's a fascinating little period in Canadian military history that doesn't get talked about too much. Still kind of fresh and for all kinds of reasons. Anyway. Can you bring us some of these authors to speak? No, I can't because most of them have now passed on. Farley Mowat has died. I know Ferguson doesn't like the internet. Wise is passed on. CP Stacey has been dead for decades. Ken Bell has passed. 30,000. There you go. It's even more. Just as we're talking, in the sidebar, Grandstein's not doing so well. And Margolian, I don't know. I haven't been able to find anything on him other than what's in the book. So no, unfortunately, I can't because I think most of these individuals have now passed. Same with the Con book. And Dan Cooks died in 91 for cancer. And yeah, they're pretty much all passed. And the guy who wrote the Maisie's book was born in 1904. If he's still alive, that is some record. Yeah, so no, unfortunately, I can't. But yes, as was a post the other day for patrons and YouTube channel members, I am working on getting some more live streams going for a variety of subjects. And if you are one of those and you want to go to that post, you can go there and leave a suggestion or whatever. Anyway, fascinating stuff. As far as I can tell, but again, this is one of those more, how do I say it? Not myths, but one of those numbers that's thrown around. Is it equaled itself out almost in a way? I mean, I don't know if there's any backing to that, but there is, that's kind of like a common thing that is said with this when it is discussed, which is rarely. I mean, there's like 2 memorials to the Canadians who fought in Vietnam, one in Windsor and one in Cornwall, I think. Or outside Cornwall, I can't remember, somewhere on the St. Lawrence. So I think it's roughly the same. Yeah, 40,000. It's it's one of those interesting ones where the numbers almost work out to be similar. Yeah. I mean, fought can be a bit of a misnomer, right? And how we understand it, particularly because we have texts and stuff. And no, not your Cornwall, James, Cornwall, Ontario. It's like less than, it's about an hour from me, not the original one. Yeah, I'll talk to Tim. I saw him the other day when I got the books, and Terry Barris. I want to get in touch with him because I think he has a book on Battle of Britain coming out. If I'm reading the dates right, I think it's not out yet. So we'll see. Yeah. So other than that, I have plans for a kind of like a Normandy wrap up live stream. I might do that this weekend. We have a long weekend coming up in Canada here in the US as well. Yeah, it's a lot of lumber mills and paper production. The new one with Tim Cook is looking at Canadians and Americans working together in wars, which is fascinating. Yeah. Vietnam can loan, kinda, I guess. Yeah. Oh, okay, in Hamilton, cool. Yeah, so it must be Battle of Britain if I was reading it correctly. Anyway, where was I was saying something and now I forgot. That's okay. Yeah, so yeah, there's lots of things we can look at and talk about, and always. Oh, sorry. Yeah, back on track there for a second. Gonna do kind of like a wrap up of my thoughts on Normandy from going there. Doing all these videos for the last whatever months it's been, having a really, really hard, focus on Normandy for so long. I've changed opinions on some things. Some things have kind of like more entrenched, more or less, with seeing the grounds again, or some new areas I hadn't been to, or finding new files and new books and all that good stuff. So I'll talk about like all that good stuff and my thoughts and kind of like a reassessment, as I'm going to call it. I'm going to schedule that for probably this weekend. So keep an eye out for that. Yes, I'd love to do more Navy. Yeah, I'd love to do more Navy. Again, it's not my strong suit, as many of you know, and it's not written about as a ton. So there's that. So I mean, I can do what I can. I can do just general Navy, see what I can find. I've been doing a little bit of digging on Paleolithic lately, which is clearly the Marines, and there's an Army component, but obviously the Navy's got to get them there. So kind of digging into some more USN stuff again. It's been a long time since I've really done that in a good way. In a really intense digging kind of way, which feels good again to kind of go back to my original academic roots of the war in the Pacific. Anyway, so yeah, it's lots of good Canadian books out there. If you're ever in Ottawa and can get to the War Museum, I highly suggest it. All that good stuff. It's also a great museum just to go to in general. And if you are in the area, let me know. I can take people, like I've taken. I went with Pat. I've taken. Try to head Pete there. I love going all the time. I never get tired of it. You think I would, but I don't. Yeah, Roger's come on the channel in the past, so I can probably get him on again. I know he's like super busy in the summer because he's all over the place. But he's always doing something research-wise. So yeah, I can probably get him to come back on, talk about something. Yeah, Nick Hewitt, I got to get in touch with him. He just came out with that new book. Yeah. Oh, and no, I haven't. I had some discussions a long time ago on the channel. When the channel kind of first started up, they're not available anymore for all kinds of reasons, which I don't want to talk about. But I could. It's just not a very popular topic. I mean, I've talked about this before, and I'm not. The channel's not at a place like a lot of those history channels out there that I'm sure many of you know of, where they can just make a video on anything and it'll do 50,000 no problem. I'm struggling to get hundreds of views, so that's another issue I am struggling with, and all that's good stuff. So I mean, I can think about it and see what the future may bring. Like if Patreon does better, that gives me more flexibility, because then I don't have to worry about that so much. Having to have that to go, to have that support helps immensely, because I can do different things. And I know you already are a patron, Andreas, and I appreciate that. But I'm trying to do more there, because it would help me greatly to do more, to be blunt and honest. Yeah, there's a whole book on the reassessment of Hill 70. It's like articles collected into a collection of books. I can't remember, something Hill 70. It's one of the few books on it, if at all. It's included in Tim Cook's books, which I know you're working on getting. It's mentioned in the official history, which is also available online from Nicholson, which is probably the best one-volume history on the First World War, really anywhere. I mean, obviously it's Canadian focused, but it covers areas you wouldn't expect, like the Med and other things. Like they're all over the place, as Canadians tend to do at war. Yeah, so something about Canadians being nice. Yeah, we're not as nice. I don't know where that stereotype comes from, because we're not that nice, to be honest. Maybe it's growing up around the GTA. A lot of anger on the driving there, so not the nicest. Getting cut off all the time. Is there? Yeah, Mad Cat. Yeah, there's most of these were on the Canadian Army. There's the official history, like I was mentioning earlier. Those are available. They're huge, detailed though. I mean, there are so many on the Canadian Army. If you want like a one volume though, they don't really exist. Not really much as a one volume that you like a quick dirty read. Like it doesn't really work like that. We don't do things like that here. There's never been like a one volume Canada Second World War. It doesn't really exist for all kinds of reasons, and I don't think there ever will be. I've talked about this in the past, but I just don't think that's going to happen because it's too difficult to do, because you'll piss off a bunch of people no matter what you do, and the finances of it will be so difficult to do because it would take a long time to write a book like that. And those positions to do so, which I am not one, tend to not do that. They want to get as many out as possible to get paid. This is just the nastiness of the business. Capturing Hill 70. Yeah, there's only really one book. Yeah, and the Calgary, I've never been myself, but I've worked with them in some capacities and know their stuff. And they got a lot going on. We have our own violence here. History of violence in this country as well. It doesn't go anywhere. Oh, well, thank you. Appreciate watching. Arab-Israeli war. Oh, geez. Probably not anytime soon. Again, if I was like one of those big YouTube channels who could make whatever, I might. I mean, it's a fascinating one. I TA'd for a course that focused extensively on kind of that time period. It didn't really go past 48 too much. Sorry, one second here. My wife keeps texting me. Anyway, so I mean, but that was years ago. So I mean, I don't know it as well as some others. And obviously, it's fraught with politics. But I mean, if the channel were to blow up a little bit more, and then maybe, but not right now. Unfortunately, I can't promise anything like that. So the Nicholson book, I'm sure somebody already saw. I've shared it here. But those who might not see in the sidebar initially or pay attention to that. So the Nicholson is the official history of the Canadian Expeditionary Force. My copy is way up there. I don't know if you can see it. It's the red one right there. I'll have to go look. I'm not wearing my glasses. Yeah, it's Canadian Expeditionary Force, 1914, 1919. It's available free online with the other official histories. Great stuff. Good stuff. Yeah, I heard the same from some guy who, is a gunner and works at D&D or something. Mark Zilke has been on the channel twice. Yeah, looking at Soro and Leonaforte in Sicily and The Shell, which is actually one of the most popular live streams I've had on the channel. It gets hits all the time, so definitely check those out. I know I do need to get out west. I haven't been out west in a very long time, and only then BC. So, especially for the museums and things of that nature. Yeah, I mean, I know you and me, Scott, we've talked about your family connection to that. There's not much cavalry going on in there because it's just not the focus. CEF is primarily, right, focused on those larger divisions, not so much the cavalry. So unfortunately, yeah. Yeah, the Sheldon one was fascinating, right? Oh, sorry, wrong one there. 1 second. Oh, they keep moving on me. Yeah, it's fascinating, and Mark really got into details of that one. And Sheldon is fascinating, and the anniversaries of those are coming up. So I hope I can do something. We'll see. I do have there is a Discord. I haven't used it recently. You said you're relatively new to the channel, so it's just been a busy time for me, and I'm only myself, so it's hard to run all this, and trying to get videos out on my own is difficult, as it is, right? Trying to balance everything. Yeah, see you, Terry. Thanks for coming out. We'll wrap up in a few minutes here, so I know last questions fire away. But yeah, it's hard to run all this stuff by myself, and it is just me, and I do other things as well. Yeah. So I do have a Discord. It's not very active. A few people have been on there, but it's been a long time, and I wish I could do more with it. But it's just me. It's struggle enough to keep up the social media that I do, which isn't much, not like I used to. And YouTube, it's a lot to run, along with the other contracts I'm doing. Well, thank you, Barry. I appreciate that. Try to do my best. Yes, and we'll have Dave on to talk about this whenever it's ready to go. Yeah, that's the copy I have behind me. It's fantastic. I mean, it was expensive, but I used a birthday gift card, so I got it for nothing. So that was great. Yeah, a Morrison biography would be fantastic. Yeah, a lot of them do. A lot of them are technophobic, or they're so busy like myself, they just can't really have time to do it. But I had one with the Aviation Museum, right? About their Cold War exhibit. So we'll see if I can do some more. Yeah, I mean, I try my best. I'd love to do that. Yeah, this is kind of one of the things. Sorry, 1 second. Jingo Strange, yeah. Anyway, sorry. I can try. I can see if I can find some people. It's, yeah, obviously, the French-Canadian connection we both have. Love to get more into that and talk about that, because there's lots going on there. I mean, you could say like the whole founding of Quebec has its military connections and first conflicts, and there's the story of Cartier and Champlain and the early interactions with the indigenous peoples, and some of them are violent, and then there's the whole clash with the Iroquois for however long that goes for. But anyway, I'd love to get more into that. Good stuff. But yeah, I got to do some planning in that. Sorry, I don't have the Discord on me at the moment. I have it on my phone, but that won't do any good. Any plans for the Boer War? So that's another one I've pondered a lot. Like a lot. Because I've worked with the RCR Museum in London. I'm from London, so it came up a lot, right? Because they got the artifacts, a lot of the artifacts and things that the RCR, did in South Africa. And the memorials are everywhere. That's one thing that's always stuck out to me, is there are, South African War, Boer War memorials all across this country, and are just hardly ever noticed. The only one that really gets attention is in Toronto, because it's in the middle of a big intersection, pretty much. I think they just recently moved it, but they're going to put it back. If they might not, because there's a whole controversy over the war itself. I don't know. The plans are to put it back, as far as I know. It's at college and something in the financial district. It's like smack dab right there. So anyway, yeah, like that war obviously had an impact on Canada. Obviously, it gets overshadowed by the war that came 12 years later. But it's something I'd love to get into. Again, not my expertise, so I'd take a bit of digging and work. But it would be something if I can get more stable. If I can, then I could definitely look into that. But at the moment, unfortunately, no. Because again, you have to balance with YouTube. You got to balance popularity with what you can do, right? I just don't know how popular that would be, and it would take a lot of time to do. And it probably wouldn't do so well online. Could be something I could do for supporters separately or something like that. I don't know. Lots to think about still recently or coming up. So I'm just catching up here. Yeah, it won't work for anybody putting it in here. I'll have to put it up later. Canadians. Sorry, what do you mean? Canadians in the Boer War for sure, but not as Canadian units, I guess. Sorry, I'm not sure what you mean, Andreas. I think I missed what you're talking about. Oh, it's one of those. Yeah, they love doing those, yay or nay type things. That's an interesting one. I should check that out. I haven't read that. Fascinating. I mean, yeah, I don't know really what side I come down on, but it's fascinating to me. So fascinating. Okay, so what is the best way to continue to help? Okay, so we'll end on this. The best, well, there's several ways. Patreon is extremely helpful. There. Sorry, I just said 1 second, Dave. I'll come back here. That's such a complicated question, James. So complicated in this country. Very, very complicated. Oh, fighting in British units. I mean, maybe. I sure there definitely was, but there was a Canadian contingent sent. Which hugely fraught with politics. Even at the time, this isn't a modern thing. So, yeah, I can maybe one day do a quick overview. Maybe that could be a good starting point. Is just looking and getting the details out there because it's complicated and it's wild. And it led to all kinds of crazy politics and divisions and things that people think only came later, but they are starting in 1899, 1998, 99 for the Canadians. That's what the War Memorial says. Anyway, sorry, getting back to, okay, focus here. So the best way is things like super chats, which just got another one. Thank you from Barry. Fantastic. Thank you. So best way to help. Okay, I'm going to have to focus if any more comes in for a sec. Okay, so the best way to help financially is obviously a huge help. Doesn't have to be much. I think I have a tier on Patreon that's $3.50 Canadian a month. That's hardly anything. If I get a ton more of those, that would be hugely helpful. So that would be good. Patreon's very helpful, right? With the new one with the book stack, if you want. That's cool. There's Buy Me a Coffee. I'll link that down below later as well. You can become a channel member, also helpful. I have a PayPal as well. Also, you can hire me for work if you want any Canadian projects done or anything other than that. I can also help with writing and research and other things. I'm available for that as well. That helps. YouTube specific, though, I did want to talk about that. Just a quick minute here. So one of the best ways to help on YouTube is to get the algorithm to see that people enjoy the videos. So the best way to do that is to, especially when there's a new video coming out. So the best way to know when those are coming out is turn on notifications. I know there's some issues with that, the system, which is nothing on my end, unfortunately, I can fix. So when a new video comes out, the more people who watch more of it quickly really helps because that shows the system, algorithm, whatever, that people like it. And the more you watch of it when it first comes out, the better. So like say I released a video at 10, whatever, in the morning, watching it within the first hour and all of it is very helpful. That's very helpful. So watching it at full, watching the whole video is always helpful. Like that is the way to go. That helps. So just clicking on it and then clicking off is actually hurtful. That doesn't help me. Sure, it'll count as a view, but that doesn't do me much good because I need the system to see that people are interested in it and they get the interest from what's called watch time. So however long you watch a video, say it's a 5-minute video, you watch half of it, I get credited, quote unquote, with that half, 2.5 minutes. The system's like, oh, this people only like to 50%, so maybe it's not going to do so well. So watching it fully is extremely helpful. Another thing is called, that's important too in these things, is a watch sessions. So that's what YouTube calls it, is where you say go to a playlist and just let it go. Or you keep clicking, you watch whatever video A, I link to video B, at the end you click on that. watch video B, watch the whole thing. Click on video C, watch the whole thing. Like that's very helpful because that really helps tell the system that people are enjoying this content, and it'll suggest it to more people, because that is how YouTube views are done. It's through suggested. My stats prove that as well. That's what YouTube says is the best way to do it. So that's the best way. I mean, I try to pump it up a little bit with social media and things like that, but that's a drop in the bucket. I need the system to pick it up to get more people to know that this stuff just plain exists. Because I see comments all over the place of people asking other creators to make what I've already made. So they're clearly not going looking for it. They want it, but they don't know it exists. So I need the system to help tell them it exists. And that's one way you can definitely help. And sharing my video with people and also that is very good. And just telling people who might be somewhat interested is also extremely helpful. So those are the big ones. Oh, thank you for becoming a member. Roderick, I appreciate that very much. We're going to lose the Victoria Bridge. It's too nice of a bridge to lose that one. It's too busy. Need that one. The thing's always busy. Yeah, Starbucks. Yeah, one coffee only. It's getting there. Thank you for the support, Dave. I really appreciate it. And you've already done, as I've told you, so much support for me as it is. So thank you. Well, thanks, Mike. I will keep an eye out for that. Yeah, run that setup. Just run it. Just run the live streams for her. So this is an interesting question. Substack, right? Sorry, I have this stupid thing. Stupid meds dehydrate me. So that's a good question. I mean, yeah, you can have pay access to that. That would just be another thing, because I do most of the other work I do that's not OTD related as writing. So kind of by the end of the day, I'm tired of writing, and I can't write like 12 hours a day. I'm just not one of those people. I wish I was. My PhD would have been done faster. It's just that's what Substack is. It's writing. It's a lot. I wouldn't be able to do it in depth like others do, or as good. I have some stuff that I can throw up for a few at a time, but that would dry up pretty quick. But I don't know. If people were interested in that, please let me know. I'll see what I can do. But I mean, yeah, it's just I've already got so much on the go, and I'll be having more coming. That's the thing. That's good though. It'll help me keep all this running. But it just might. Definitely will take up more time. Yeah, that's very helpful. Thank you so much. So that's a good question. Doesn't really matter. There was this theory that was bouncing around for a while that the later you click the like button in the video helped. But as far as I know, that was kind of a myth because you're just watching it anyway. So the watch time really helps. Likes obviously help because it tells people. Even dislikes help, which I think is hilarious. Doesn't matter. The system sees an interaction, and that's it. So, I mean, that's funny to me. People come on and will hate on my videos and insult me and question my literal intelligence and my looks, and it's just stupid, and it just helps the video reach more people, especially if they keep coming back and they go to other videos and try to insult me. I'm like, you're just helping. So to me, it's hilarious. So I don't think it matters. I don't think there's been any definitive proof on that, because a lot of people look into this stuff like it's its own industry of doing, helping people on YouTube is really its own industry at all. Like, it's crazy. So a lot of people have a lot of time to do that, which is wild. But no, it doesn't matter really. I don't think. Just hitting it, leaving a comment, and watching a good chunk of it as much as you can is possible is extremely helpful. That would really make the difference, is watching a bunch of it. Yeah, okay, Dave, I'll get in touch. Yeah, that sounds fascinating. Fourth medium. Oh, and a medium regiment too. Normandy or Italy. It doesn't really matter. Yeah, go ahead. Fire away, Rob. Fire away. I'll come over to your channel and return the favor. Leave comments everywhere. Go for it. You should see some of the things I get on a given day. It's wild. Oh, Normandy. Cool. Not much known about them. Well, obviously there is. I'm saying this to a gunner, but the medium regiments are just getting, brief mentions when they play such a pivotal role. Anyway, we are digressing a lot there. So yes, if a video comes out, try to watch the whole thing in one blow. From the laugh, you should hold live sessions from the laugh. What's the laugh? Yeah, I mean, the Lafayette. Oh God, that just came to me. Well, I've been there like twice. I didn't go to like undergrad here, so I didn't grow up here, so I only learned about that place later. I've been there once or twice. It's wild. It is an experience to be held. I don't think you'd be able to hear me if I went in there. Maybe on like a weekday morning. Still be busy. It's an interesting bar, that's for sure, in the market. Apparently oldest, yes, that's what they claim. I don't know if anyone's looked into it. Anyway, I'm going to sign off. So when's the next transmission? Good question. This weekend. I'm going to do that Normandy wrap up at some point. I'm going to probably plan that now. Not really sure when, but it'll be sometime this weekend. Just got to figure that out. Probably Sunday, maybe Sunday. We'll see. Just because we have the Monday off. Yeah. So, okay. Thank you for all those who gave super chats, new channel members, anybody who signed up for Patreon. I can't see, but maybe they did. I don't know. Everyone have a good weekend. If you're not able to come hang out. But yeah, give some thoughts to those books, even in general, or just, keeping these things in mind. There's a lot of good stuff out there. There's a ton of good books out there. I know they're not the most available across the Atlantic, but there's lots of good stuff out there. So if you can see them or find them in any way, or I don't know, get in touch with me, maybe we can figure something out. But yeah, I'm thinking Sunday at 2. That should be fine. But I'm going to think about it in the next little while. I got some other work to do, and then I'll figure it out. Yeah, so thanks everyone, and any support, support the channel, or else, the else is the channel goes away. So if you like it, please consider it. So anyway, I'll see everybody for the next one, probably Sunday afternoon. Other than that, enjoy your Friday and your weekend. Bye, everyone.